Today is a travel day and I'm having some travel delays, as one does as part of this life. I'm literally outside of the Airbnb that I just checked out of. And so I thought I'd answer one of the most common questions I get, which is how I became a digital nomad. The average age of a digital nomad is 32 years old and 80% are male. So I definitely understand why I get the question a lot. I kind of became a digital nomad in part by accident. So to explain how it happened, let's take it all the way back to when I was 16. I thought I had to go to university, but I didn't want university debt. So my plan was to join the Canadian Armed Forces. I thought that I'd get to travel a little bit as part of that. And even back then, I did want travel to be a big part of my life. In March 2020, everything closed. So school took up most of my time. That closed. I worked at a restaurant about 20 to 30 hours per week. That closed as well. Gym, sports, everything kind of shut down. So I had a lot of free time. And like most teenagers, I was spending a lot of time on TikTok. And I started seeing these videos about how you could take Harvard courses online. And I thought, might as well be productive with the time I have. And I started looking at these courses. And making money online was always something that I was kind of looking for. Not online necessarily, but just making money. And so I saw some Harvard courses that were about coding. And I knew that that's something that I'd be able to monetize and start doing that freelance. But as I was looking at it, I was like, this doesn't really interest me. Coding isn't something that I'd want to do or development or anything like that as a job. It does interest me a little bit, but for some reason, not as a job. So what really always interested me was business. So I started looking at the business courses that they had in Harvard, and I would read, what the course was about and whatnot. And I was like, I already know this stuff. I think what I really just need to do is start a business and actually learn by doing. So I start looking at different online businesses that you can start, and of course I come across things like drop shipping, but it didn't really seem like a real business to me, whatever that means. Eventually I came across someone talking about selling on Amazon, which I had thought about a few months before, but I just didn't know what to sell. At that point I did a little bit more research, and then in March, I don't know if it was March still or if it was April at that point, but around that time of 2020 was when I bought 1,000 units of that first product. I, as a 16-year-old kid, didn't have any experience. I didn't have experience or capital, so I wouldn't recommend doing something like that, but I worked really hard on it. I was practically obsessed with it, and I was lucky as well, and that all happened to just go well out of luck. At this point, I realized I didn't have to go to university to earn a living, and because of the content I was consuming, I was seeing some entrepreneurs who would travel. They would have a home base and they would travel while they worked, and I thought maybe I could just travel and just keep traveling to different spots, right? Which is basically being a digital nomad. I just didn't know what that was at the time. At that point, I completely dropped the idea of going to university because my eyes were opened to this completely different lifestyle that I wanted to pursue. The business was doing well at that point, and so I signed with a warehouse in Toronto, where I'm from, and I was just reinvesting all the money into the business because I, as a 17-year-old, at that point I had turned 17, didn't have any expenses, so I was just putting it all back into having more control over the process, the branding, and everything like that. In September of 2020 was when the second wave of that sickness, you know what I'm talking about, we can't mention it here, but you know what I'm talking about. That's when that hit, and so I started having issues in that warehouse with outbreaks, and every time there was an outbreak in my province in Canada, they had to shut down the warehouse for 2 weeks, and so everything slowed way down. The business was still slightly profitable, but it wasn't doing nearly as well as it was before. Now, while all of this is happening, I'm also having issues at home, and I know that I'm not really going to be welcome at home when I turn 18, which is going to happen in spring of that year while I'm still in high school. So I'm going to have to move out. This meant that I couldn't wait for that sickness situation to just clear up because I needed the money to move out. So I started trying different business models. I worked like a crazy person for that period. I was still in school, of course. So I was sleeping like 3 to 5 hours a night and just working like crazy. I've genuinely never worked like that in my life. It didn't turn out well. I definitely burned out after that, but that's what that period was like. And even still, I wasn't able to replicate the same success I'd had with the first business. Either way, my birthday came around, and as I said, I had been reinvesting all the money in the business before, hadn't really pulled out any for myself, and I only had a few $1,000s Canadian to my name. Because I was 18, I also didn't have a credit score, so I couldn't rent out a place, and the only real option was to get an Airbnb. After I paid that first month of the Airbnb, I remember having $3,000 Canadian, which is not a lot. I lived in Toronto at the time, so it was very expensive, and that was only the first month, so yeah. At this point, I was still making enough to live somewhere like Bali, for example, so my plan was to go to Bali, but I was in a relationship with someone at the time who was about to move to London in the fall, and so I decided I'd go to London in the fall, and then January of that year, I'd go over to Bali. London was amazing. I really love that place, but it is very expensive. It's definitely not the place to be while you're on a budget. Anyway, because of the warehouse situation that I mentioned before, that situation and cycle of continuous shutdowns of my warehouse caused my Amazon seller account health to go down. And so they were holding my funds, a payout that I had for September or August of that year. They were holding it in my seller account for 90 days. And I really was counting on that payout because just before that, I had spent the last bit of money I had on a new batch of product. So when they held my funds, I had to shut down the warehouse stuff. Like I had to just throw out all that product basically. So I lost a lot of money there. I obviously lost what I had just bought because there wasn't anywhere for them to ship that, for that to be distributed to customers or anything. So I lost all of that. And I had to wait 90 days for that payout. So at 18, I don't have a lot of credit or anything. So I have just enough with that and a little bit of savings to make it to December of that year, which would have been 2021. So December comes along, and at that point, my relationship with my mom, since I had moved out months before, has really improved, and we're going on a family vacation to Cartagena. So I fly from London to Bogota, and I have just enough, again, with my credit card, to pay for the flight from Bogota to Cartagena as well. And so that's the last bit of my money. Sorry for the interruption, guys. I was in the middle of a travel day. It was all chaotic. Couldn't finish the story, but I'm here to finish it now. So the payout was set to go, I think it was December 14th. And so I set it up so that my flight would leave December 14th from London, and I would arrive in Bogota December 16th to kind of buy me time. So it was all these weird legs to the flight. But I arrive on the 16th and the funds still have not been deposited, the funds that they were holding from 90 days before. So at that point, I'm pretty much completely out of money. I happened to find a little bit money in one of my payment processors that I hadn't deposited from a long time, but it was only a little bit. So it was basically I had enough for food or for a place to stay for that time that I was in the airport. And so I decided to go with food. So I basically just stayed at the airport I ended up being in an airport for about 10 days. I feel so fond of that airport. I can't explain it. It feels like, yeah, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but I think back to it fondly. And when I go back to the airport, I'm like, oh my God, it's the airport. I don't know. It's weird. Like, I don't have any negative feelings about it. I just have, obviously at the time I did, but now I look back on it with nostalgia. But anyway, we go on a vacation as a family. Obviously I couldn't pay for this vacation. My mom paid for it. It was her gift for Christmas. And it was a lot of fun. And then with that vacation package was a flight back to Toronto included. So I took that flight, and I was like, at that point I have to get a job. So I ended up getting a job. It was a remote job, but I couldn't leave Canada or the States. So I didn't want to stay in that job long term, but I was so burnt out from everything that had happened before that I just wanted something kind of chill, just get back on my feet kind of thing. So I start working that job, and then summer comes around, and my initial plan was to go back to those businesses in the summer, but honestly I just still felt a little bit burnt out to go back to such intense work and so much work. So I decided to instead start looking for a remote job that would allow me to travel, because I really wanted to go back to that, but not have all the stress that came along with having a business. So I started looking for jobs that summer. In August of that year, I ended up landing a role that would allow me to travel anywhere in the world while I worked. And that's when I booked my flight to Medellin. So from Medellin until now is all documented on this channel. So feel free to go back if you want to fill in the gaps in the story. And if you want to see where the story goes, then you can subscribe and see more. I'll see you next Sunday.